Well, if you even know what apples are, there's a good chance you've heard of McIntosh apples, but have you ever heard of Macfree apples? I want to compare both of these varieties here today and our experiences with both the fruit and the trees on our homestead, and hopefully help all of you figure out which variety you might want, or if you might even want both on your property. McIntosh have a tendency to kind of get mealy if you leave them at room temperature, so these have been stored in the fridge for about 3 weeks. I picked them in early October, and now we're about November 2nd today, so these should be pretty good. Shouldn't have really absorbed that refrigerator flavor, that kind of tendency that some apples have if you leave them in too long. But we'll go ahead and give these a shot and let you know how they taste. So I'm going to start here with the McIntosh apple. Yeah, absolutely delicious. Very fine kind of flesh, very fine texture. Very, very good, especially for one that was picked so late. It was one of our last 3 apples even on the tree, but still very, very good. Comparing that to the Macfree now, there's just a slight difference in flavor. I'd say it's not quite as sweet as the McIntosh. So actually having them side by side, I think the Macfree is just a little bit more tannic, and the McIntosh is just a little bit more acidic. So I actually prefer that little bit more acid flavor that you get in the McIntosh. And overall, I think that's been really my experience the whole time. I haven't often grabbed one of each to compare. Generally, I'm just going for the McIntosh, but that would definitely be why, is it's got more of that acidity to it. And I kind of like that sweet tart kind of a flavor over the tannic flavors. So another major difference I'd say is that the flesh on the Macfree is just a little bit thicker, especially the early apples. When you bite into an early McIntosh, I don't really notice the skin being an issue, but with the Macfree is because the skin is worse. So it's a bit thicker, it's a little more gross, but when you turn it into applesauce, both fruit I've had really good applesauce out of. Again, the acidity is just a little bit better with the McIntosh than the Macfree, but still the Macfree makes excellent applesauce. Can't complain about that at all. I'd say these are both very representative of what I've eaten this season so far. This is a little bit more balanced, and this kind of leans towards having that tannic flavor to it. It's still good, but certainly nothing compared to this. In fact, overall, my experience has really been to favor the McIntosh. So why would you even want a Macfree apple whatsoever? So one of the biggest differences we've noticed between our McIntosh and our Macfree is that the McIntosh tend to get ripe quite a bit sooner. About late August is when you start getting them, and certainly into early September. But the Macfrees aren't ready until mid to late September. So if you really want McIntosh and you're a huge fan of McIntosh overall, having the Macfree could certainly extend out that time period that you're eating McIntosh and Macfree apples. So the final apple or two of our McIntosh was right there first week of October, but our Macfrees are still on the tree. We've still got a few up here, and this is early November. Another huge advantage of the Macfree is the resistance it's got to apple scab. We don't really deal with a lot of apple scab here, but that's one of the main things that's touted about the Macfree, that McIntosh is quite susceptible to apple scab, and the Macfree will resist that a lot more. I've also witnessed firsthand the resistance the Macfree has to fire blight. We had a pear tree right next to it, the next one in the orchard, and the Macfree never once showed any signs of fire blight, even though other pear trees and even another apple tree that was further away from it got fire blight. We never had a single problem with the Macfree. Now, we didn't see that with the McIntosh either, but it's planted quite a bit further away in the opposite end of the orchard from that fire blight. So that could also be why, is that distance it had, that it didn't get infected. So time will tell on that, but I know for certain that the Macfree didn't get fire blight, and it's advertised as having a good resistance to fire blight. So overall, I'd have to rank the McIntosh as better than the Macfree for certain when it comes to the flavor. But if you're having problems with apple scab or fire blight, other issues like that, the Macfree is certainly a good option to get that McIntosh flavor in your orchard without worrying about getting infected with different fungal diseases and things. It's certainly still a good apple, but honestly, it might just leave you wishing you actually had a McIntosh. So hopefully this has helped you determine which variety you might want to plant on your own property. Or if you're still interested in looking up other varieties, be sure and check out my playlist here to see what else we're growing on the homestead. Thanks for watching.